Hi, movers, and welcome to Smart Talk, where we help you go from truck to CEO by working smarter, not harder. Today, I'm talking with Paul, SmartMoving's product manager, and he spent the last year tackling one of the biggest headaches in the moving world, or any world for that matter, reporting. So, if you've ever wrestled with spreadsheets or wondered why it's so hard to actually see what's happening in your business, this episode's for you. So, let's jump into it. Let's start with the big question here. Why do most reporting tools fail our movers?
As you scale, the number one thing I've heard and seen is you lose your ability to make real time decisions. Most of the time, you are going to be stuck pulling data, pretending you know what you're doing, adding in a bunch of formulas, and then by the time you're done and you make the decision, that data is already 24 to a week old. So by the time you spend all the investment to make the decision, something else has already changed about.
Yeah, I hear that all the time. Like we have a lot of owners that are spending hours exporting data, and by the time they get that, it's already outdated. And so movers out there that are listening to this, like if this resonates with you, drop the into the comments so we know that, you're not alone in this journey. So Paul, what was the moment in that journey that made you look at the problem and say, all right, this absolutely has to change. I'm going to fix reporting for movers.
It was actually my second week here. So they brought me in as SmartMoving was scaling, and I kept talking to a few movers. I actually got to be on a sales call, and I'll never forget when the mover said, "Okay, well, where's my report for this?" And we didn't have an answer at the time because they had a very niche, specific thing they needed. They said, "Oh, don't worry about it. Tell me which things they need to download. I'll go put it together." That blew my mind because I couldn't believe someone was going to spend the time to download and make a decision. Something really small. It was something about operations and sales. And if you're familiar with it, they're trying to figure out their speed to lead, but they were also trying to do it in relation to each salesperson. So we had some semblance of that, but nothing crazy. But we always would hear, we just want another filter. Or one of my favorites ones was, oh, if you just add this column. Well, I can tell you after death by 1,000 paper cuts, we added 1,000,000 columns and no one knew what that meant.
It sounds like a headache. So
Enormous
how
headache.
much time were movers wasting doing these things manual or trying to find answers?
So we had two different camps. I'll start with the first camp. The manual manipulators, as I called them, would spend anywhere, especially owners, for some of them reporting up to 25 hours of reporting. And this was weekend time. So imagine that you're trying to run a business, but you're trying to make a decision on data and you're doing it in after hours. It's just chaos. So most of the time they would end up with dated information they themselves had to pull. And then they would go into Excel, and then imagine now trying to share that with your operations team. We saw all sorts of crazy Google Sheet sharing workarounds. It was wild. And then the other camp was our autonomous astronauts, I called them, because they overshot the moon where they were trying to go. They paid some of them over $2,000 a month to try to export data from SmartMoving, put it into all sorts of solutions, and then pay an analyst to keep it up to date. The problem was they actually ended up making a bunch of extra headaches because they would add in more data points or have to manipulate what they needed to see to answer basic questions. What's my top line revenue? What types of service am I offering?
Wow. So it was time and money. It
Yeah.
was the biggest challenge. And so you spent a lot of time working with these movers side by side. Now that you identified a problem and you were able to get to the point of smart insights, like how did that change for them? Like what flipped the coin?
This became kind of the unification of two camps, which was real time decision making. So when I started the process of figuring out what that solution would look like, we asked a lot of questions around decision making. Why are you using data? We knew people knew kind of what they wanted, but when we dug deep, all of them were doing the same thing. They were trying to make decisions. They were trying to use data to do it, and they knew Smart Moving had the data to give those answers. So when we started working together with them, the number one thing we came up with was, I want to visualize it. I want to see a graph of all the different service types and my performance for each salesperson. That was like the pinnacle of getting there. But
Mm.
as you can imagine in Excel, there were a bunch of tables and custom formulas. And so as we started this journey, one of the things we uncovered was, I want to be able to know when something is wrong. And I want the system to tell me, because a lot of them were downloading those reports, spending hours trying to decide what was important. And by the time they made a decision, the data was either stale or something had changed. So now with Smart Insights being able to tell you when something is wrong based on your business rules, you don't have to spend all that time looking at the data, like in the matrix, trying to look at all the numbers.
Got it. No, I love that solution there. And for everybody who's listening in, right? This isn't an ad. This is actually like understanding what good reporting looks like when it's actually built specific to the moving industry. And I think that's the key factor there is that there was a lot of retrofitting alternative solutions to try to
Yes.
get to where you wanted to be, but you were daisy chaining a whole bunch of different things that was spending time and money to really get down to the grit of what you needed. So I'd love to just turn this real with you, Paul, if we can. Let's say, for our owner operators out there that are watching, what metrics should they be looking at every single day?
The ones that are most important is actually how we break it out. So sales, operations, and accounting. So I'll go through each one. Sales, you want to know your total booked revenue. You need to know what you're doing and what's actually being closed. You also need to know your incoming leads and the projected revenue so that you can know what your conversion rate turns into.
Mhm.
How many leads are you getting? How many are you closing? Those are super important for a health of a sales organization. And then some of the secondary ones in sales, where are they coming from? What are your referral sources? Where is that pipeline getting fed and is it healthy? Answering those daily can help you make decisions on if you buy more leads from all those different sites that are always coming at you. Operations, how about efficiency? How much time are they taking from your estimated time versus actuals? Being able to know that can help you optimize crew, your sales, all of your different pipelines when it comes to building your estimate accuracy. And frankly, it can make sure you make decisions on when you can take a job and when you can't. And then accounting, your profitability. We have expenses, you log them all. You took in 100 grand for that job, but guess what? You spent 99,000 on expenses. Is that what you want? Making sure you know your numbers and margins so you can optimize everything that comes down to those expense lines, especially with those interstate moves, which cost money for hotels, for driving, for everything else. You want to make sure you charge your customer enough that you're actually making money.
Exactly. So it helps you have no surprises. When the move is done and you're sitting there looking at the numbers at the end of the day, you actually know ahead of time if you're going to make money or not. You're not guessing at the end of that and having that Sunday scaries that you
Exactly.
get at the end of the move, right?
Yes.
So not everybody has jumped into, the business intelligence factor, right? Like,
Yep.
so there's a lot of us still out there managing things in Excel every single day. What are some of those like neon signs that say, hey, you're outgrowing this. It's time to consider making a switch to a tool that's a little bit more mature and built for the industry?
I think there's some very simple ones that you really should look at. One, if you're big enough and you can get off the truck, you probably are already going to start outgrowing Excel. It does a lot, it's super flexible, but do you want to spend your time and let's just say over 2 hours a week on reporting? And then the other big sign I would say is as you're starting to scale your organization and you need to make decision points, having an analytics reporting tool to answer those questions is absolutely necessary. Trying to forge together different pieces of information on Excel will probably lead you to make the wrong decision. Been there, done that. Ask me how I know. I got to watch people do it. It's something that you think is easy to do, but when you get lost in the nuances of what column means what and what formula does this, good luck trying to remember where you started.
Exactly. So there's clear growing pains as you're going along,
Definitely.
but as you put in the work to actually get to that, like the value and what's coming out of the back end, that's saving you the time
Yes.
that have been doing beforehand, like trying to just put all these things together, and your margin of error slims. Apples instead of apples to pears, right? So everyone, if you're nodding along to this and you've lived through those growing pains, like, hey, don't forget, hit our subscribe button because in every episode, we're going to be unpacking more tools and more strategies like this for movers. So, Paul, just one last thought here, right? So, I don't have an MBA in data science. And what are our movers going to say, right? They're probably sitting there going, yeah, but Paul, I'm not a data person. What would you tell those movers today?
Smart Insights was designed with movers in mind. It was one of the hardest tools I've ever built because we spent time looking at everything a mover needed to know, organized it into the concepts they're familiar with, and then we actually bolted on a bunch of baked in reports and dashboards you can start with. So you're not starting with a blank canvas and saying, Paul, holy cow, there's so many tools here. No, we curated it for you, and we even have a way to leverage artificial intelligence to put on columns you don't quite understand or business rules you have. So there's an enormous tool set that is already great starting grounds. It was a very unique piece that we got to put together that I'm very proud of here at SmartMoving.
Such a great reminder. So it's not about being a data person, it's just about being a smarter business owner at the
That
day. So Everyone, if this episode helped you see reporting in a new light, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss our future talks. And give us a comment. Tell us what you'd want us to dig into next. Nothing here is off limits. If it helps, our movers work smarter.